Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we'll be going over all 26 bosses in Dark Souls to discover which are the best, and also the worst. I'll be using 3 factors to determine the boss's quality. The first judgment parameter is lore representation. This doesn't only address how good the lore is for the particular boss, but also how much the boss represents that lore. Number 2 is fair challenge. Of course, the more challenging the boss is, the higher it will score, but it also must be a fair challenge to get high marks. Third is overall enjoyment. Very simple, just how much I personally enjoyed the experience. Of course, this part is subjective, but I'll try to be as fair as possible. Please note that this ranking is based on the quality of bosses and not the difficulty. Opinions are subjective, and it's okay to disagree. If I miss anything or you see something you don't agree with, let me know in the comments below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the ranking. Anyone who's played this game probably saw this coming. And I think you all know this overgrown route is just the worst. Do you love RNG-dependent platforming bosses in a game that was not designed for platforming? How about trying to dodge through sweeping branches and being slapped into bottomless pits? Are you a fan of running through lava for 10 minutes only to be blown up by a firestorm 10 steps from the boss? Well, Bed of Chaos has all that and more. I hope you brought a bow and some fire bombs, because otherwise you have almost no chance of beating this boss without dying at least a couple times. Seriously. I don't know what the devs were thinking when they designed this boss. What really makes me sad is the Witch of Izalith was one of the great 4 lords, and instead of giving us an incredible fight with the creator of Pyromancy herself, we get a stupid bug instead of a tree, in the middle of an unfinished hellscape of lava and copy-paste enemies. So disappointing. Next up on the bullshit boss list, guarding the depths of the lower undead burg is the Capra Demon. Now, if I'm being honest, the boss itself is not the issue here. The first problem is the arena itself. It's smaller than Gwyn's ego after I spam parry his hollow ass into an early grave, only to light myself on fire like a lunatic. You can't put a goat demon in a shoebox. But how dare you shove some dogs in there, put a fog gate in front of it, and call it a boss? Your only hope in this so-called boss fight is to hold up a shield, hope you don't get cornered and turned into dog food, and run to the top of the stairs. Half the fight is just killing the dogs to make it a fair 1v1. The Capra Demon itself isn't that hard on its own, featuring a relatively simple moveset and a moderate health pool. I wish you luck with this one, because if you die you'll be running a 5k marathon back through backstabbing thieves and, you guessed it, more dogs. There's a very simple way to describe this boss. Imagine watching paint dry, except this paint can fly, and it wants to kill you, but it really sucks at killing you. And once the paint dries, you can actually hit it, but you'd better hit it quick or you're going to have to deal with it doing an awful job of trying to kill you again. Okay, maybe that wasn't the simplest way to describe that. I mean, you could bring a bow or some sorcery to swat this fly from the sky, but it's way easier to just become human and summon Witch Beatrice to cast a spell or two and kill the butterfly before you can even hit it. The only reason this boss scored 3rd worst is because it's not a pile of bullshit. Had no fear, the bosses only get better from here. Did I say the bosses got better? I mean, I guess this boss isn't much better than the others. The only reason it scores any higher than the butterfly is since the centipede actually shows some semblance of difficulty. Try saying that 10 times fast. Yet again, we have a boss that's hindered by its arena. When you walk into the boss room, you'll be greeted by a small platform surrounded by a lake of deadly lava that you can't step in unless you cut off one of the centipede's arm, butt, head tails and equip the orange charred ring in the middle of the fight. The only thing worse than literally playing the floor as lava with an overgrown demon bug is how the camera shakes whenever you get close enough to hit the damn thing. I thought about giving this boss some points in lore representation, since there's some obscure notes about the centipede being formed from the ring that Quelana gave to her brother, the ceaseless discharge, to quell his eternal suffering. But that doesn't make any sense related to the 100-legged fuck that you fight here. I only ever see this boss as filler just to give you trouble on the way to a shitty boss, after a shitty boss, on the way through a shitty area. It's really too bad, as I believe the Centipede Demon could have been a decent fight in other context. Well, we're 5 bosses in, and we've already covered all 3 Izalith bosses. I wonder if that says anything about the quality of the area in general. The Demon Fire Sage was supposed to be one of the greatest pyromancers in all of Izalith, but for some reason the devs decided to reskin a boss that was a reskin of another boss that wasn't even that good in the first place. The arena design choice was at least pretty neat, and the roots give the boss a good chance to corner you if you're not careful. This boss wields a staff instead of the hammer that his early game counterpart has, and watch out because he also learned a couple spells such as an AoE attack that can trip you up if you're not careful. If you just stand behind that jiggly booty and clap those cheeks while avoiding his cheeks clapping you, everything should turn out alright. I gave this boss a higher rating because I feel like he was the original Asylum Demon reskin. I also really enjoyed the first time I went back to the asylum, only to fall through the floor and see this fat bastard waiting to introduce my teeth to the back of my throat. Overall, I've already addressed this boss in the Fire Sage section. Just remove the fiery texture and bam, you got Stray Demon. Way down at the bottom of the catacombs, past the Bone Meal Brigade, guarding the Rite of Kindling and the entrance to the Tomb of Giants, you'll find the lethargic, teleporting necromancer Pinwheel. This dipshit could be such an excellent boss if he just had a bigger health pool. Maybe you're supposed to fight him in the early game before heading to Anor Londo, but who the hell is going to run around the catacombs without getting a bonfire, or even worse, grabbing one at the bottom and having to fight tooth and nail past exploding skulls, unyielding bone wheels, and irritable necromancers? Unless you come here right after leaving the asylum, you'll almost certainly 2 or 3 shot this boss before it even has a chance to turn around and show its ugly faces. Pinwheel is supposed to be the most powerful necromancer in Lordran, sucking away the power of the Lord of Death himself. Item descriptions say that it's the deformed amalgamation of a man who tried to revive his family, but instead transformed them into a simple being that lurks at the bottom of the catacombs, trying to fix itself. And we got a scrawny little wannabe that can't even put up a fight. Okay, I'm gonna do my best to behave myself here so as not to get banned, but what the fuck is this boss? What is he unendingly discharging? If I understand this correctly, the lava in the demon ruins comes from him. In that case, is it pus, or perhaps something more unholy? When I first met this boss, I saw the classic video game trope of, ooh, take the shiny item and the scary guy will get you. But it's more than that. The stone slab you take the item from is his sister's grave. The only way he'll attack you is if you strike first or you strip the clothes from his sister's corpse. Honestly, I'd probably be a bit angry too. If you do steal the item, Ceaseless has an Easter egg that honestly most people probably already know about. If you run like a bitch with your tail between your legs back to the entrance, he'll jump and try to grab you, and get stuck on the cliff with one hand. At this point, it only takes 5 hits with any weapon to send him plummeting to his doom. I was going to rank this boss higher since I feel bad for him, constantly being in agony and trying to protect his loved one's grave, but then I remember he dropped the ring that created the 100-legged bitch that is the Centipede Demon. So yeah, fuck this guy. For most, the Taurus Demon is the second boss of the game, but you can also complete the entire game without even realizing he exists. I'm sure any unfortunate soul who ran across the bridge expecting to just run across, but instead had a steroid-induced bull jump off the tower and scream in your face had the same reaction I did. Pure panic. I'm sure I didn't even hit the Taurus Demon during our first encounter. Other than the shock factor and nostalgia, this belly-bumping bovine doesn't have much going for him. He's about as simple as the Asylum Demon. Just get behind him and wail on his booty. I mean, he has an interesting plunge attack spot in his arena, but we already learned about that in the tutorial. And I can't think of another spot in this game where that is even used. Nonetheless, the Taurus Demon still has a special place in my heart as a terrifying encounter I'll never forget. After trudging through tar pits, running through swinging blades, getting impaled by arrow traps, and gangbanged by snakes, I'm sure everyone loves being grabbed by a brainless iron fatty and yeeted off the top of a fucking building. And of course you'll have to run through the whole place again, because who the hell is going to see that hidden bonfire? At least you can return Iron Golem the favor by slashing his ankles until he splats onto the same ground that he spiked you off of so many times. If ankle breaking isn't your style, there's actually an even easier way to take this dipshit down. In the tower to the right of the fog gate, you'll find a summon sign that has the distinctive scent of beef jerky, protein powder, and Red Bull. Just let this enormous hunk of man meat walk through the fog gate with you, and stand back while your lumberjack chops the golem's legs off while he pleads for mercy. So yeah, not really a bad boss, just kinda middle of the road for me. This boss was my first big roadblock in Dark Souls, although now he's not too much of a challenge. The Gaping Dragon was a great learning tool for a new player like me. This just makes me want to rank the boss higher, but unfortunately, I must be fair. The Gaping Dragon is supposedly a small dragon that has become so hungry that he turned into a giant mouth. I feel your pain, man. The channeler above the arena can make this fight a nightmare if you didn't explore the whole area to get rid of him. He has an annoying tendency to do a stupid iron pineapple dance and buff up the toothy vagina monster. He'll also constantly pelt you with magic missiles while you try to deal with the boss. Without the channeler though, I think the Gaping Dragon is pretty solid. Right on cue after the Vagina Dragon, we have another boss that has roused many players' loins. Gwendolyn is a boy who took special interest in lunar magic as a child. So what does Gwyn, Father of the Year, do for his young son? He says to the kid, "What? You like the moon? You must be a girl. Thanks, Dad." Gwendolyn takes pride in keeping up appearances. Once you kill him, you'll see that the entirety of Anor Londo is just a spell. The fire is fading, and the sun was only an illusion. I personally can't stand this boss. He has only 3 attacks, all of which are easily countered by just walking sideways. Once you finally get close enough to hit him, he teleports away after only 1 or 2 attacks. Sorry, Gwendolyn, I pity you for your childhood trauma, but I don't appreciate having my time wasted. Oh boy, I'm actually excited for this one. Asylum Demon is the first boss you come across on your journey through Lordran, and also one of the easiest, which is why I imagine most people would rate this one lower. But this boss is an excellent test of skill for new players and teaches them the combat mechanic of plunge attacks very early on. In my opinion, he's still the best tutorial boss in the series. For experienced players though, Asylum Demon is nothing more than a speed bump. All you have to do is stick to that camera-ready booty, and there's not much you can do besides monetize that shit on OnlyFans and get ready to die a quick death. Even though Asylum Demon is way too easy now, he still gets high marks in my book for being a great learning tool for newbies. Well, at 13th place we had the first boss of the DLC, the Sanctuary Guardian. I found it hard to give this boss an overall enjoyment rating, since the fun in this fight is almost up to RNG. Sometimes the Guardian is very agreeable, playing fair by mixing up its attacks and staying on the ground for the most part. But sometimes it can be a bitch and a half. Giving bosses intermittent flight is always a questionable choice, since unless the boss has good AI, they can stay in the sky way too much and make it nightmarish to find the damage opportunity. Also, you'll definitely want light rolls in this fight, since the boss loves to chain its 5-hit combo, making it impossible to avoid unless you can roll fast enough. I do enjoy the interesting water mechanic. When the Guardian flies, sometimes it'll shoot lightning at you, which continues to ebb across the water, which you need to avoid. An interesting encounter for sure, but not enough to get this boss any higher. Crossbreed Priscilla is rumored to be the offspring of Seath and Guinevere. I don't know, nor do I want to know, how that night went down, although I'm sure you can find an accurate illustration on the internet. Priscilla was banished to the painting of Ariamis by Gwyn, where she rules over all the other misfit creatures in the world. Now Priscilla had a great concept that I think was just done poorly. The idea of an invisible boss that you track by its footsteps is a really cool idea, but Priscilla is so slow to attack that the whole fight is just kind of a hit and run. Wait for her to attack, run over to her and hit her, and run away. Not the most engaging combat. The invisibility concept was redone rather well by Sister Fried in Dark Souls 3. Still a solid and unique fight compared to a lot of bosses on this list. Nito, the Lord of Death itself, lurks at the bottom of the inky dark Tomb of the Giants. The vibes and immersion that I got from Nito on my first playthrough was enough to make this my favorite lord. Dropping into the dark tomb of the Gravelord with the eerie soundtrack, skeletal minions, and enormous skeleton lord made of other skeletons. God damn, what a feeling. Of course, that was my first impression. Coming back to this boss in many playthroughs is nothing but tedious. Traveling through a dark, hostile hellscape full of giant skellies, skelly dogs, skeleton babies, and you guessed it, towers of skeletons, only to drop into the boss room, which is miles and miles away from the nearest bonfire, by the way, only to take mandatory damage, get gangbanged by the Ravelord's bouncers, and sent back to the halfway point of the awful area we just addressed earlier, is pretty damn insulting. Just stay away from the back of the room, since there are some rather unsavory, unnecessarily large skellies waiting for you to make the wrong move. But of course, if you've played the game before, you've either brought a holy weapon, which kills the minions permanently, or you've discovered the excellent ring combination of the Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring and the Ring of Fog. Using these together makes you almost invisible to other enemies in this fight. Nito is actually very easy on his own, mostly because he's incredibly slow and telegraphs his attacks quite well. The only attack that's much of a threat is his AoE, which has some very obvious tells. But if you don't run away fast enough, it will almost certainly one-shot you. Sorry for going on such a long rant about Nito, but I love and hate this boss, and I wanted to touch on everything I possibly could. The Scaleless, the Traitor, the Immortal. Seath the Scaleless awaits at the bottom of the Crystal Cave, guarding his Crystal of Immortality. This guy created things like the Crystal Golems, and of course the Moonlight Butterfly, making me instantly hate him. Seath was born without the Scales of Immortality that made his kind so powerful, so when Gwyn and the other lords began their rise to power, he betrayed his own kind to make an alliance with Gwyn. Gwyn rewarded Seath with a shard of his own lord's soul, and Seath retreated to the archives where he went mad in his research of immortality, kidnapping young women to experiment with them, and somehow finding the time in between to knock up Gwyn's daughter Guinevere, birthing crossbreed Priscilla. Seath uses cursed crystal attacks to try and fend you off. He can also slam you around with his tentacles, as obviously all dragons have tentacles, making it very hard to cut off his tail, which rewards you with one of the greatest weapons of the game, the Moonlight Greatsword. So goddamn good. I love this boss. Guarding the Bell of Awakening atop the undead church in the parish, you'll find possibly the best duo fight that FromSoft has ever made, the Bell Gargoyles. The only thing that holds back this boss at all is the fact that they're only lures that there are gargoyles that guard a bell. The battle begins with a lone gargoyle jumping down from the roof of the church to challenge you. Wielding an axe, a tail, and scorching hot flames, one gargoyle can be challenging enough for a new player. Once the first gargoyle is taken down to half health, his wounded friend hops down to join the fight. The second boss mostly breathes fire, making it more of a hazard than an active participant during the fight. Even when the second gargoyle does attack, they remain pretty honorable and rarely overwhelm you. Getting behind the first gargoyle is preferable in this fight, since with a few hits you can remove its tail, stunning it for a moment and rewarding you with the Gargoyle Tail Axe, a strangely flexile weapon. A great gank fight and a great boss to help new players learn the ropes. The Four Kings of the Abyss, the bane of most challenge runs. The fight starts with only one king with a health bar shared between all four, or depending on how the fight goes, there can be 5 or 6 kings. You gotta have a lot of damage in this fight since another king spawns every 45 seconds, making this battle much more perilous. Sometimes the kings are respectful, staying back a bit while you fight one of them at a time. But I wouldn't count on it since they also love to fling purple magic globs that will chase you to the end of the earth. The 4 kings have multiple sword attacks that can hit pretty hard, but that's nothing compared to the magic missile, AoE, and life drain grab attack, which can actually one-shot you if you have low vigor. Overall, a fun boss, but a flawed boss. After the arduous trek through the beloved ramshackled sewerfest that is Blighttown, you deserve a treat. I mean, look at that big, hot sword that the boss is carrying. Oh, you thought I was gonna simp? Sorry. I prefer my ladies without the side of Spider-Poon. Quelaag is definitely hot in other ways, though, as she has the annoying tendency to fill the entire arena with spicy fire soup. Make sure you don't get too far between her spindly legs, as you tend to get trapped there, and she just loves to pull off that one-tap explosion while you're stuck. Most Souls fans would probably rank the Daughter of Chaos lower, but I know on my first playthrough, she felt very refreshing as an excellent challenge after the BS that was Capra Demon, the Depths, and Blighttown. The OG Lord of Cinder, Gwyn sacrificed himself to keep the first flame lit. Gwyn awaits you as the final boss of the game and the killing of the first flame. This boss is certainly flawed. Can you parry? If yes, great, this boss will be a piece of cake. Oh, you can't parry? Well, get ready to dodge this Bloodborne-paced boss in a game that was built for about half that speed. Also, since Gwyn is the only boss that can be parried, how are you supposed to know how to do it in the first place? When you go through the entire game fighting 25 bosses that cannot be parried, who actually guessed without hearing it somewhere that you can parry the final boss? The soundtrack honestly makes Gwyn much more enjoyable. Aside from the gimmick, I still think Gwyn is pretty fun. Getting through the entire game hearing praise for Gwyn's godly power, just to finally find him and see he's nothing more than a wrinkly hollow like you, certainly carries a lot of weight. The iconic gank fight roadblock of Anor Londo guarding the Lord Vessel are Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough. I was legitimately stuck here for 2 weeks when I first played the game. I deleted my character and restarted since I didn't know you could leave Anor Londo to get upgrades. The fight starts with Ornstein zooming towards you, with Smough loping close behind. The difference in speed between them makes them a great duality. Once you defeat one of them, the other will drain the dead companion's remaining power and become supercharged, making them much more difficult. Most people refer to this as a perfect gank fight. Maybe I'm just bad at the game, but this is far from perfect in my eyes. Although O and S are both excellent bosses on their own, fighting them together can be quite annoying as they don't like to separate. You're lucky to even get one hit on Ornstein before Smough either slams his hammer down on your head or charges at you and flings you into the air. Unless, of course, you have a summon. Calling in the cavalry on this fight makes it much more fair and enjoyable in my eyes, and definitely something I'd come back for. I know, I'm a scrub. But this game is all about enjoying yourself, right? And if I have to summon to enjoy myself on this boss, then that's what I'm gonna do. Someone called the cops to find out whoever gave this dog a sword as long as her body. Sif, the loyal companion of Knight Artorias, is standing guard over her master's grave in the Darkroot Garden. If it was up to me, I'd leave this adorable doggo alive. Unfortunately, though, you have to kill her for her master's ring, which is the only way to get to the Abyss and fight the Four Kings. Sif also has a special Easter egg if you free her in the DLC before fighting her. Once you go to challenge Sif, the intro cutscene is different and she's reluctant to kill you, making it even sadder to obtain the ring. I'd never done this myself, but I'm sure there's plenty of footage on YouTube if you'd like to check it out. Sif wields her master's greatsword with grace, twisting and spinning it to shred you like a blender. Sadly, as long as you stay beneath the boss, there's not much challenge here. What's even sadder is that once she gets low health, Sif starts limping and can hardly put up a fight. All you can do is be merciful and put this good girl out of her misery. Debatably the best dragon in the FromSoft catalog, Kalameet the Black Dragon guards the royal woods of Oolacile for some reason. That's the only reason he didn't get full marks. This dragon is supposed to be the symbol of destruction, but apparently he's just chilling in the woods waiting for your undead ass to walk into a canyon so he can flame broil your booty to perfection. You can't even fight this boss on your own. You need the help of Hawkeye Go to shoot the dragon down with his great bow. Even grounded, Kalameet is possibly the hardest boss in the game, sporting heavy-hitting flame attacks that come out so fast it's hard to react. He also has a unique debuff he can cast which will make you take double damage, so be careful. I've honestly only defeated Kalameet 2 or 3 times since it was just too difficult for me for a while. My personal favorite boss in the game, but the Great Dragon only takes top 3 in the overall ranking. Once just a human like the player character, Manus descended into the darkness and fathered the Abyss itself, corrupting everything in his path. Manus hits harder than any other boss in the game and has more health than most others. His attacks are also very fast and difficult to dodge. The darkness definitely doesn't make it any easier to see his slinky, inky black arm. Although his melee attacks are hard to avoid, once he's down to 60% health, he pulls out the dark magic attacks. The shotgun blast can be rolled through if you have decent timing, but will shred your health if you mistime it. Of course, if you're worried about dodging the magic, there's an item called the Silver Pendant earlier in the level which will deflect the spells. I find the timing of this item even more difficult than just dodging, but that's personal preference. If you're looking for the hardest challenge in Dark Souls, look no further than the Father of the Abyss himself. Coming in at number 1, we have the best boss in Dark Souls, Knight Artorias. Before you have access to the DLC, you hear throughout all of Lordran that Artorias is the one who braved the dark and stopped the spread of the Abyss. But once you make your way to the Colosseum of Oolacile, you find the Abyss as strong as ever, and Artorias a madman, a shell of his former self. In fact, it was you all along who stopped the Abyss. Of course, in order to do that, you have to take the former Knight of Gwyn down. Artorias attacks quite fast and is absolutely relentless, giving you almost no opportunity to heal. Sporting speedy charges, unrelenting flip combos, and spirit-crushing spins, this boss is very unpredictable, so having quick reflexes is essential in order to deal damage. At 75, 50, and 25% health, Artorias will attempt to channel the Abyss to buff himself, making his resistance higher and almost doubling his damage. If you have a heavy weapon though, or you're quick enough to react, you can stun him out of the buff and get some decent damage in the process. Artorias is the perfect example of a punishing but fair boss that forces you to get good or go hollow. And that's what Dark Souls is all about. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the ranking. If you agree or disagree with anything in the video, or if I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. If you like this new style of video and you'd like to see more, then tell me what you want to see next. A lot of work went into this project, and I mean a lot, so leave a like if you think it's deserved. Once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.